Right, guys, we're going to talk about these black devils. We're going to single out the black devils from out of the Anunnaki and speak about them on their own terms. We need to do this because they've camouflaged themselves into us like they have done since the beginning. So therefore, I'm going to walk you through this slideshow presentation so that you can discern for yourself and define the ways in which you can spot these black devils from out there in society with us to the highest levels of society when we're looking on the TV and the news and the media and social media. We're going to, after this live, you'll be able to tell who's a black devil and who's not a black devil. You understand? Hold me to that. Make sure you have a notepad and a pen to take some notes. Okay? Now let's dance. First, I want to go right back to the beginning of the Adam and Eve story. Talk about the Adama project. Yeah? The second one. The Lulu Amelu project, where we learned that Enlil took over the runnings of the operation and he had a nefarious agenda. He didn't have good plans for human beings. Yeah? For one, they wanted to use this planet as a food source planet. A planet where they could just come and collect food. You know what I'm saying? So, Enlil and the reptilians, the evil reptilians, the disagreeable dragons, they had an agenda to use this planet for food, as a food source. The other Anunnakis, the Elohim Diner, the righteous ones of the rocket ships, their agenda was to make a being in their image that could help them with the work needed to be done so they could save their planet, and then these beings could live on and become their own entity. They could ascend into godhood themselves. So these two agendas began to clash on Earth, and they've been clashing ever since, and they still clashing now. So the second Lulu Amelu project produced a group of people who we know as Homo sapiens because we're them. You understand? But it was like twofold. You had a set of Homo sapiens who came out with a balanced nature. I'm not going to say good, I'm going to say balanced, because they have both agreeable and disagreeable. That was the whole point of the experiment, to breed beings that could fight and that could kill if needed, if we was attacked. You understand? By archons and reptilians and stuff. So we became a dual nature society as Anunnaki. We had beings who were disagreeable and we had beings who were agreeable, but it was all being ran by the Most High Anu, who was agreeable and who was the final word, the last word on all things, all decisions. Okay? Anyway, when dealing with these disagreeable Yahwehans, these disagreeable Anunnakis, they started working in tandem with the serpents or the dragon, the reptilians. I'm talking about the Alpha Draconians, the ones with the Galactic Republic agenda, negative agenda to use the planet as a food source. We all know what happened with the Cain and Abel story, and how Cain got kicked out of the garden and was forced to go into the land of Nod during the Genesis story. The land of Nod was a settlement or city, if you like, comprised of extraterrestrials and different types of humanoids. That was before the Homo sapien. So you have like Atomites, which is a type of black Hindu who are humanoids. You have reptilians like the ones on your screen, and hybrid splice reptilians like human/reptilians and greys and whatnot. Yeah. You also have pale, non-melanated aliens who we can call them Pleiadians, or we can call them Aldebarans. Yeah. And we had Yahwehans mixing with humans also. Okay, so all these make up the disagreeable sons of God, or sons of the Elohim, in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 7, who came down and found the daughters of man attractive. They found these human women attractive and fair, and so they adopted these women from the Nile Valley, as you can read in Genesis 2 verses 9 through 15. It talks about the rivers flowing through the garden, yeah, on earth. And it cites certain rivers for you, 4 of them, so you can know the east and west borders of this region that they call in the Eden, or the Ganawa, the garden, yeah, the enclosed garden of delight. Okay, Eden, that meant the land of the rocket ships where the gods were coming to and fro. Yeah, it was marked on the west by the Nile, the Pishon and the Gihon, the white and the blue Nile, and it was marked in the east by the Igdiglakt Furatu, the Tigris Euphrates. So therefore Iraq marks the eastern border and Egypt marks the western border. So that whole region in between them 2 rivers, or I should say 4 rivers, yeah, the Tigris Euphrates in the east and the Nile Valley, the white and blue Nile in the west, yeah, that affectionately became known as the window of heaven, because it was the region where the gods was coming to and fro from the earth. Why? Because that's where they decided to put their spaceport, what was called Baalbek, yeah, in Lebanon. You can do a research on that for yourself. That was the landing platform for the Elohim, or the Yahwehan, or the Anunnaki to come and go to and fro from the planet Earth. You understand? Lebanon, Baalbek, the ruins still stand today. Okay? So during the Genesis story, during Genesis chapter 6, 1 to 7, you get introduced to the term Nephilim, which is talking about the children of the fallen angels. And the word fallen angels comes from the word Nephilim. And the word Nephilim in Aramaic Hebrew comes from the root word Nephala, which means to fall, to fall. And when we think of falling down, like falling out the sky and coming down to earth. But it's really trying to give you a sense of the high vibration that they had as Anunnakis started getting lower and lower and lower, that the vibration is what's falling. So the vibration slows down and these beings become dense. They become trapped in the flesh, just like us now, humans, trapped in the flesh. We think that the Adam or the human is the flesh. We identify with the body rather than saying that we have a body or we have a human. So this is why you go back to Genesis 2 verse 7, and I quote, "And God breathed his spirit into the Adam, the man, the human, and the man, the Adam, the human, became a living soul." So the man, the human, is the living soul, as we spoke about before, not the flesh. Do you understand? And when we're talking about fallen angels, we're not talking about them falling out the sky like some movie stuff. It's really trying to tell you the vibration fell from a high vibration way up there on 8 and 9 density, way down here to the 3D, and becoming trapped in the flesh, or becoming trapped in densified gross matter. Okay? This is a bit loud, isn't it? Yeah? So it was a fall in the vibration of the being, and it's the vibration that determines what the being will be in the all. Your vibration determines everything. Even your organs in your body have their own vibration that enables them to remain a heart or a lungs or a brain. Every part of you has its own vibration and is unified in a unified field vibration. You understand what I'm saying? So these fallen angels, their vibration, their density drop. They're no longer 8th dimensional, 9th dimensionals, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. They come all the way down to 3rd dimensional beings and became stuck here. So that's what Nephilim means. They had children with these women, and so they produced Nephilim, meaning they half these fallen angels and they half human. So they were seen as demigods. They became known as men of renown, as Genesis 6:4 tells you. They became men of renown, mighty men, heroes, classical heroes, Hercules, Gilgamesh, Nimrod, all of these hero stories that you hear about by the classical Greeks and the Kemetians and whoever else. These were real beings. It weren't a joke thing. Yeah? So then, after you read through Genesis 6:1-4, when you get to Genesis 7 now, it talks about how God repents. He doesn't like what he's done creating man. Man has become something that he looks at with contempt, because man has just become corrupted, evil. Man was given the power in the beginning, and man's heart became so corrupt so quick that power had to be taken away, and humans just became corrupt-natured, corrupt-hearted, and all they concerned themselves about was having fun, pleasure, especially when it comes to sex. The whole world was just lost on sex. Everybody just fucking each other. You understand? So all the genes became confused, because you got all these different beings in a melting pot, all shagging each other, and now the genes is being distributed all around these beings, and there's no control about this thing. That's really what Enlil was angry about. So even though we see him as a disagreeable from a human perspective, from his own perspective, he's not wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? And we need to keep hold of that, because a lot of people now, a lot of teachers will demonize Enlil, and Enlil is not disagreeable. Enlil is agreeable. Enki is disagreeable. I'm talking about when you're speaking from the Anunnaki's perspective. Let's leave us humans out of it. Yeah, Enlil is the agreeable one, and as far as he's concerned, he sees this project as dangerous. Yeah, so he doesn't want this project to work, because he sees this project as jeopardizing him and his kind. Yeah, other Anunnaki see it a whole other way. And remember, reality is perception. Okay? So anyway, Enlil's ordered a flood. He's like, yo, we need to flood and wipe out these creatures, man. They dangerous. We need to kill them. Whether we're going to start again or not, these creatures that we got on the planet, they're noisy and they corrupt. They're evil. All they think about is evil. Yeah, we need to wipe them out. Do you understand? Before this becomes a problem. That was his stance on the thing. So he ordered the flood, because by then he was in control of the Earth project. Remember, Anu don't come down here and concern himself with Earth in that way, direct way. Anu thinks about the whole universe, so Anu's not even present on Earth. In religion, they try and give us this omnipotent God who's everywhere, and we've already gone through that if you go back to the Bible God business. Yeah? But Anu has got bigger fish to fry, so he delegates. Yeah? First, it was Enki he left in charge. Enki got took off the project because of the disagreeableness Enki was doing. Remember, Enki had to be converted into being agreeable. Yeah, I'm talking about, to the Anunnaki, Enki was disagreeable. So as far as the Anunnaki, the council, were concerned, he had to fall in line with the council. Remember what we was talking about all the stuff Enki did to go against the council, and how Enki did have in his early days, he was doing a lot of stuff that was even against humans too. So at times Enlil acted like an antagonist, like now, and at times Enki acted like an antagonist, like in his early part of when he first was commander over the project. You understand what I'm saying? So Enlil orders the flood to wipe out humans. This is all without Anu's consent. They taking these decisions on themselves, playing Anu. They playing the role of Anu, which is wrong, and they get reprimanded for this shit. and they've done it more than once. Do you understand? Enki's done it, and Enlil's done it, and there's other beings that do it and continue to do it. Yeah. So they Enlil took the decision to, yo, I'm gonna wipe these fucking pests, these parasite humans, out with this flood. When the ice caps melt, nobody's gonna tell them. We've already gone through all that stuff. Yeah. But I've got a thing for you to consider now. Being that if you read Genesis 3, we spoke about the serpent and how the serpent was the most subtle creature. And if you read from Genesis 3 verses 1 to 16, there's a whole beef thing going on here between these reptilians and Adam and Eve. Why? Because this Yahweh, this certain Yahweh who is Enlil, he put the enmity between the reptilians and the humans. He was the one who stirred up the beef. And this is admitted in their Bible in Genesis 3 verses 15 through 16. Yahweh says, I'm going to put enmity between her seed and his seed, meaning her, Eve's seed, and his seed, the fucking serpent. And she's going to crush its head by stamping on the snake's head, yeah? And he's going to bite at her heels. So we know it's not talking about Adam, it's talking about the serpent. And it says the serpent has a seed. It has its own seed, these reptilians, yeah? So anyway, the flood of Noah came. Now, when the flood of Noah came, did the children of Cain die? Because we read through Genesis 4 and 5, it's all about Cain and his children and how prominent these people became as Cainites. And they were industrial, and they were iron workers that were dealing with iron way back then. Remember, they tell us the Iron Age didn't come till just yesterday, you know. These niggas been doing iron since Cain, humans, yeah? And having cities and industries and all that shit. And it speaks highly about these children of Cain, and even reveals how they was naming all of their children the same names that the Adam and Eve line were naming their children. Remember, Adam and Eve's line continued through Seth, and then Seth's son Enos. Genesis 4:26, Enos. And their line was no longer Adamite, was no longer like, had 9 senses. They got dumbed down by Enlil. All of them. Yeah, the Adam and Eve scene and the children of Cain. Adam and Eve scene, they got dumbed down. Yeah. So it tells you in Genesis 4:26, and then man became to call on the name of the Lord. This means they no longer see themselves as gods. They now having to look outside of themselves for divinity. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because they've been dumbed down by Enlil in this second Adama project, this Lulu Amelu project. They no longer know that they're gods themselves. They praying to a God outside of themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Okay, now. So that's Genesis 4:26 concerning Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam. Enos was the first being born without his barophary gland. So they no longer have 9 senses. They lost the intuition, the telepathy, the clairvoyance, and the psychometry. And they became the 5 sense person of what, or the mortal human, what modern man that we are today, with only 5 senses. Yeah. So now we're in the image of the Tamahu, the Mzungu. That's not the image of God. Yeah. So anyway, the flood comes, but the children of Cain still continue because evil is still in the world. If God said he's going to wipe out all evil and kill all living creatures, yeah, and with water, when certain creatures live in water, it's not really the best plan, is it? Fish live in the water, shark live in the water, dolphins, whales, aquatic, amphibians, reptilians, they live in the water. So I don't see how God could say in the Bible, I'm going to wipe out all living things with water. That don't make no sense. You understand what I'm saying? And the children of Cain survived because you got these evil people that have survived after the flood. If you're going to kill all living things because of evil and wipe out evil, that means after the flood there should be no more evil. God, you've wiped it out. Do you understand what I'm saying? But he failed to wipe it out. This Bible God, Yahweh, Enlil, he failed. He ain't got all this power that he thinks he's got. He ain't got the power that you think he's got. You're giving him more power than he's fucking got. And that goes for Muslims, Christians, and Jews. But let's continue, yeah? Yeah, so the children of Cain continued because they had already mixed their seed into our seed. When you read the Gospel of Cain, yeah, the book of Cain, which tells you what happened to Cain after he was threw out the garden. This is not in the Bible. This is a book in itself, the Book of Cain. Do a Google on it. You'll probably find it. I've read the Book of Cain myself already, and it tells you everything that happened to Cain after he was cast out the garden, yeah, in Eden, and had to go and live in Nod, yeah, where he was conversing with reptiles and demons and stuff, and he actually found a wife. Ask the Christians, where did Cain get his wife from? Ask the Christians and the Jews, the people who go by these scriptures, yeah, ask them, who was Cain scared of when he got through out the garden? Who was he scared of that was going to kill him if it's only Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel on earth? If he killed Abel, then it's only Adam and Eve left. So if he's got thrown out the garden, why is he scared of whoever's going to kill him? Who are these people he's scared about who are going to kill him? Do you understand? And where did he get his wife from for him to have children and shit? See, they don't tell you none of this in religion, because religion is a blindfold. You understand what I'm saying? What happened is Cain had already been mixing, according to the Book of Cain. They started mixing back into the sons of Adam and Eve, meaning Seth and Enos. They became what's called Enosites. Yeah, so the Cainites was different to the Enosites, but the Cainites began mixing their blood in with the Enosites. Yeah, and so they did this from the time of Cain. It's in the Book of Cain. So they had already been doing this way before the flood. So that means all of our families was already infiltrated. And that's why it says in the Bible that everyone was corrupt except for Noah. He was holy. The word holy in Latin is referring to his genetics. His genes was pure. It's not some mystical religious fairy tale thing like some, when we hear the word holy, we thinking about that shit in a religious sense. You should think about that word in a genetic sense. Holy, whole. His genes was whole. There was unmixed. There was pure. This is holy. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's all about genetics. That's why if you read the Bible, the full concern of it is, who's your dad? He's the son of him. 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 He's for pages upon pages, because they concern with fertility and genetics. The war in between these beings is about fertility and genetics. When you consider reptilians and greys and how they're dying species and they got hybrid program, yo, it's about fertility, and humans are some of the most fertile creatures because we're new. We're babies. We ain't fucked up our genetics yet like the greys have and shit, or the prokions sex they self out and all of that. Do you understand? So it's about the genes. Noah was pure, but his wife Nama wasn't pure. She was somebody who came from the tribes, the Watusis and stuff, that had been mixing with Hindus, black Hindus in Chaldea. You understand? So Nama, Noah's wife, she wasn't pure. Only Noah was pure. So she had recessive genes in her genetic makeup. And she passed those genes to her son, Ham. And Ham passed those genes to Canaan in the being in where them genes became active. You know, like sickle cell, like you can have the sickle cell trait, yeah, and you don't have full-blown sickle cell. It don't show up in you. It don't cause you a problem. But you can pass it to your child, and your child goes with another being who's got the fucking sickle cell, and now they got full-blown sickle cell. It's not just a trait no more. This affects them in life. It's the same when you're talking about this Ham story with Nama, Noah's wife, Utnapishtim's wife, passing the genes through Ham into Canaan, and Noah knew it, and that's why he told Ham, your fourth son is going to be born with the curse. What is this curse? It's leprosy, or it's a triple curse. Leprosy, albinism, vitiligo, because they're not free. They're not the same. They're actually three different things. So Canaan or Lebanon was born with all three, and that's the curse. You're talking about leprosy. You're talking about, because leprosy is this bacteria that nyams out your skin. It literally nyams out your skin. Albinism is where your fucking melanin is gone, like when you're born an albino. Vitiligo, that's another bacteria that's nyamming out your skin. So when you read in the book of Leviticus, it's telling you, yo, is there a yellow hair coming out the skin? If the yellow hair's coming out the skin, that means this shit's already fucking, like, yo, gone beyond control. Lock that man up in a house and board him up so it don't spread. And this is how they were taking the thing. Do you understand? If it don't have a yellow hair in it, you probably can help the dude. Yo, it's crazy. It's talking about the leprosy and the fucking albinism and the vitiligo. So it tells you in Genesis 9:25 later on, cursed be Canaan. Canaan was cursed with this shit. Canaan means Canaanite. It's the same fucking word. So these Canaanites was the first Egyptians that was having these problems with this leprosy and shit. And they became known as the Canaanites or the Phoenicians in the land of Canaan, where you see Israel, Lebanon, Syria, just outside of Egypt. That became the land of these diseased people. Their genetics have got disease. We kicking them niggas out. But them niggas has got all the knowledge that we've got in the Nile Valley. So you'll see some history books call them Egypto-Phoenicians and tell you they're actually Ethiopians. Because when Henry Rawlinson and them started digging up these places where these Phoenicians were, it was always the case that the ruling families were who they considered Cushites or Ethiopians. Do you understand what I'm saying? These niggas had leprosy and certain things in their genetics. They was the ones that was cursed. Yeah, they had a major trading city which was called Tyre or Tyre. Yeah, and Biblios. Yeah, that's where they get the word Bible from. These are the first people that started using the knowledge of the Nile Valley outside of the Nile Valley in Phoenicia or Canaan as the Canaanites. They became the ones that were doing the trade, big merchants, seafaring. They became known as Phoenicians because of the purple dyes that they became famous for. Their purples were second to none, were the best on the planet. So they became known as Phoenicians, the purple people. Do you understand? Because they started trading these purple dyes. Purple is not a natural color. Purple don't even really exist. It's a deception color. Yeah, it tricks you at what you're seeing. It's not real. But they became famous for this purple. Even today, you see the royal families wearing the purple. Look at this Janus figure on the screen now. The two-headed Janus. Yeah, that two-headed Janus we know, yeah, is a conjure thing. Yeah, and this coin's an Etruscan coin to show you that these Etruscans were already mixing out and using the fucking Muzungu. Yeah, we're going to get to them anyway. Yeah, we'll get to the Etruscans and the role that they fucking played. And that's ahead from Carthage. Carthaginians like Hannibal or Carthage, you can consider them Phoenicians too. Yeah, so Ham passed them recessive genes through himself into his fourth son Canaan. The genes came from Utnapishtim's wife, who was named Nama, who was one of them beings who came from mixing with the Hindus, the Atomites and stuff. You understand? The Watusi, sorry, and stuff. Yeah. And the curse was leprosy, vitiligo, and albinism. And when we say the word holy, it's referring to the genes, the seed, the pure seed. Yeah, and Noah was unmixed. So because he was unmixed, being the leader of a family of 80, they saved 80 of the family members due to Noah. Do you understand? And restarted humanity as the 8th restart. That was the 8th attempt. Yeah, Adam was the 7th. And now they've washed out everything with a flood. Now they're starting again. They're considering Noah as the 8th. You understand? But as I said, the Canaanites, they already mixed their genes into fucking the children of Adam before this flood. So they survive after this flood, because in the Bible, after Genesis, it just gives you 2 chapters on these Canaanites and speaks so highly of them, and then never speaks about them again. They don't tell you if they died, if they continued, what happened to them, none. And they left that book of Cain out of the Bible. But you can go and search for that book and read it for yourself. Yeah. So this is the start, the beginning of these black devils, man. And they started mixing with these reptilians and Vulcans and shit in the land of Nod, where Cain got his wife from. She was one of them. They was carrying these recessive genes that was brought here by the Hindus when their star died in Sirius. Sirius B exploded. Yeah. And they had to seek another home until that star was repaired by Anu. Yeah, it's repaired now. A lot of them are gone home, Nomos and mermaids and all types. But they came here on Nibiru, and some of them stayed on Nibiru, some of them stayed on Earth as a temporary home. While they did that, they were spreading these fucking genes, which were that they weren't supposed to be mixing with other beings and shit. They were spreading these genes. Certain beings was mixing with them. You understand? Nama, the wife of Noah, she's one of the humans who came out of them mixings, who was mixing with these Hindus and stuff. You understand? Pleiadians, Aldebarans, Yahwehans, Vulcans, because 10,500 BC is the date when these extraterrestrials what you want to call fallen angels or multidimensional, started coming in onto Earth and interfering with Earth without permission and raping off these Earth women. This again is Genesis 6 verses 1 to 7, and they produced these hybrid giants that were red and ruddy and paled out into the white people of today. These giants were like Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal man and all type of fuck-ups that weren't supposed to be here, man. So the elders had to make a plan to breed this recessive gene out of our people. And here on the screen you can see Ugarit. Ugarit is the language that was spoken by these Canaanites, these Phoenicians, yeah, these children of Cain. And Ugarit is the language, or Ugaritic, yeah. The script is different from the language. Put it this way, I can speak English, but instead of using ABC script or the phonetic script of the Greeks or Phoenicians, yeah, let's say I was using Sanskrit, but I'm still speaking English, but when I write, I'm writing English in Sanskrit, or I'm writing English in Ugaritic. So I'm using these letters you see on the screen, yeah, for A, W, Z. So I'm still spelling like English. Like I'll spell my name the same, but rather than use the letters we're familiar with, I'm going to use these letters. That's called the script. So the script is separate from the language. So when you're dealing with Semitic languages, they was first using, all of them was using this script, cuneiform. It's basically cuneiform script. And they all had their own different dialects and languages, yeah, but they used the same script. Do you understand what I'm saying? Their languages were tied, they were linked because they came from one another, but they adapted it based on where they were and specific other reasons, yeah. They all adapted it and used their vowels differently and shit. But the scripts first started out as cuneiform picto scripts before the phonetic script came along, which was done by the Phoenicians. The Canaanites we're talking about here, we're going to see them soon. That was done by the Phoenicians, and they passed that on to the Greeks. And the Greeks developed it into Linear A and Linear B. And we're not talking no conventional history here, because they give you a kind of spin on it in history, like this is some white people thing. But no, when you talk about the Phoenicians, they bought this script out of Africa. They didn't just invent it where they were. This script already existed in Africa. Certain priesthoods, like the priest in Kemet, they had about 4 or 5 different scripts for different reasons. Just like today, Sanskrit is used for religion in Asian shamanistic culture. But that's all it's used for. They don't use it to do business or to have a normal conversation with me and you. They only use that in their high fucking shamanistic rituals. So there was languages like that in Kemet, where it was only used by the priesthood and stuff. And then there was other languages that was used by the administration, like let's say hieratic. So rather than having to sit there and paint these beautiful fucking hieroglyphs, they could just scribble real quick. It looks like Arabic. They could just scribble real quick. Okay, you bought this much things for this much price. Rare. He paid him. This is the business. Here's your receipt. See you later. Like, they're not going to sit there and paint fucking hieroglyphs that's going to take them like 4 or 5 hours. Priesthood are using that to explain some religious text or some shit. They got time to sit down and do that. But so we don't get that. We just think everything was written in hieroglyph. It fucking weren't. That's not how it works. And that's why I have to keep banging these fucking points into people's heads so they perception can change. So this was the first script that the Phoenicians were using in Ugaritic. You can consider Ugaritic Proto-Hebrew. So this is before Hebrew and Hebrew Israelites and all of that shit there. This is Proto-Hebrew. You can even say Proto-Phoenician before they started calling themselves Phoenicians, yeah? And then they, because of the purple dyes and how famous they became, now they became known as Phoenicians instead of Canaanites. So as you see, the names are changing from Canaanites to Canaanites to Phoenicians now. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's go further. These are some of the Phoenicians now on your screen. These are ones who was in Cyprus 300 BC, a woman. Do you understand? They had people of Crete, people of Minoa and stuff. There's another one here from 400 BC. Yeah, all of these are Phoenicians. When you say Carthage, Tunisia, that's Phoenician. When you say Troy in Anatolia, Anatolia was Turkey. Yeah, Troy was far in western Turkey. Yeah, that's Phoenicia. Yeah. So there's various different places that you can consider Phoenician, and the ruling nobility is always black people. Yeah, even if there's other cultures, other races, the ruling race of these Phoenicians is black people. You can see it here from their statues. And this dude here looks like Baal, in the pose of Baal, the Phoenician god Baal. The same pose that Menes does and a lot of the pharaohs do, but they holding a mace to crack a skull. You understand? This is an Etruscan statue now in front of you. Yeah, these are the Etruscans who was responsible for the fall of Rome and the takeover of Rome. They may even have been responsible for the fall of Greece. You understand? So when they leave Mesopotamia now, they go into the Levant. And when they leave the Levant now, they go into the Mediterranean. So they became the Etruscans, who you can see here. And the Etruscans, who you can see here, is responsible for the fall of Rome. Like I told you, I can even say they're responsible for Roman culture. That's what history tells us anyway. But I say they're responsible for the fall of Rome. Rome was already black. And it wasn't fucking evil. And these niggas turned it into the Rome that we know as Rome today. You understand? The fucking Etruscans. And they lived in the region of Rome, which is called Tuscany, or the region of Italy, I should say. That's called today Tuscany. That's them. They started that shit. They also started the city of Venice because they were merchants. They know about water and living on water and boats and ship. Venice is basically a floating city. That's their shit. The Etruscans, they built all them aqueducts and stuff, not no fucking Romans. Well, I should say the black people built the aqueducts, and they may not even be aqueducts. And this guy here is a Greek that you can see on the screen. This handsome black lad here. Look like any Sudanese today. And this one here's a Greek. And the next one's a Roman. Anyway, let's continue. Don't look like a Bazungu, does it? So they left and went into Italy and became what's called the Etruscans. Once the Roman Empire had fell and the power bases shifted from the Italian peninsula, yeah, we know that the Ashkenazim went into Europe. In terms of like northern Western Europe, we're talking about France, Germany, Britain, Scotland, Netherlands, yeah, even all the way up to Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland. That's where these fucking Ashkenazim and shit went. But also the Sephardim went there. And when you say Sephardim, yeah, you're really talking about the black, the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, who were seen as Sephardim. Yeah, so you have Sephardim and you have Ashkenazim. The Sephardim, when they left Italy, they went into these same black Etruscans. They went into Andalusia, into Spain and Portugal, and they began to call themselves Moors or Sephardim, which means the black Jews, the black Sephardic Jews, or black Sephardic Moors. Some of them were Muslim. They changed to Muslim, their religion, to Islam. Some of them kept their Judaism shit, yeah, the rituals from Judaism and stuff. And some of them turned into Catholics, into Christians and shit, yeah. So you had these Sephardim. They was populating the Iberian Peninsula, which became Andalusia. This is before it became Spain and Portugal. It was classed as Andalusia, and this shit was prominent, not only for the Sephardim, but also for Arabs, Muslim Arabs. So Islam became a big influence there. Islam was the religion of choice there. But even before all this, even before the Etruscans, they went there. The reason they went there is because they was already there as Phoenicians. Remember we said the Phoenicians was the merchants of the world. They knew about everywhere. They literally mapped the world with the Egyptians because they're part of Egypt. So they mapped the world. They ruled the seas before Vikings, before Jason and the Argonauts and these Greek stuff and that. They ruled the waters. So they were the traders. Historians would tell you they came as far as America. They fucking already knew about America. Of course they did. They already knew about the ice war. They've mapped the fucking world. Do you understand what I'm saying? They come to Britain to mine copper, to get tin and copper and stuff. That's why the Salisbury Plains with that white horse in their pastures, that's them. That's the Phoenician symbol. So they was already in Andalusia. And so when they was looking for a place to go now, because Rome's fallen, yo, Andalusia's booming. Yo, my cousin lives over there. Let's go over there. So they shifted their power base to Andalusia. They went there and joined their fucking Phoenician cousins as Etruscans, and they went there and they started rolling under the name Sephardim, or just the name Moors. And remember, the word Moor comes from Rome. It don't come from Islam. Like a lot of Muslims today think Moor is just to do with Islam. It's got nothing to do with Islam. Islam usurped that title because it was being used in Rome to describe black people. Anywhere they found them, oh, they're Moors. You get me? M-A-U-R, M-U-U-R, M-U-W-R. You understand? All of them words. And then in Spanish, which is a Latin Romance language, yeah, one of the early ones, the word became morenos, the color black. You understand what I'm saying? So they were going under the name Sephardim and Moors. You understand? And the reason why I've paused the slide is because this cat, El, is the Phoenician deity El. Here, we're not talking about Elyoin El. We're not talking about the Most High Anu. Remember we spoke about just now how Cain was naming his children the same names as the line of Adam. Yeah? It's the same with the deities. Yeah? And Leal was naming some of his sons names like El. Like he's Elyoin El. Yeah, and the Canaanites was worshipping these guys. They were starting their own religions and playing themselves off as Anu. So this is Enlil's son, El. You understand? Just like another son, Baal, or who's sometimes called Teshub. Yeah, these are all sons of Enlil. Nannar, Sin. These are Enlil's children, the Phoenician gods, who the Bible keeps warning us not to worship after these gods. You understand what I'm saying? And these were the ones who put themselves as lofty gods. They want you to feed them grapes and pray to them and all of this stuff here. Yo. So as Etruscans, they moved from Tuscany and Venice and went into Andalusia. Yeah. So as we see, they started out under the name Cainites, children of Cain. Then they became Canaanites, people in the land of Canaan. Yeah. And a hint and a receipt for that is if you look in the Bible, Genesis 15, verse 17, it speaks about the Cadmonites was in the land. Who were the Cadmonites? They're never mentioned again in this Bible. And the Christians don't explain to you who Cadmonites are, neither do the Jews. But if you go back to the Sumerian story, Adam in the Sumerian story is named Cadmon, meaning Easterner. Yeah, Cadmon. And Eve is called Nakeba, meaning tribal leader, or Hawa, mother of the living. Yeah, Adam is called Cadmon, yeah, the Easterner, or Zakar, the forgetful one. So as Cadmon, his people became known as Cadmonites. These first crop of humans that come from Cadmon, the Cadmonites. These are the same people as Seth and people at Enos and stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Cadmonites. They was the ones who was originally living in the Levant. And the Levant got stripped off them by these children of Cain. That's why in the Bible they forgot to take out that part about Cadmon, because they're supposed to hide that shit, because that's a receipt. You understand what I'm saying? So the Canaanites took that land and became known as Canaan, or Canaanites. The land became known as Canaan. And then they got the name Phoenicians because these Canaanites were so good at making purple dyes. Now they became the purple people, the Phoenicians. When the Phoenician Empire fell, yeah, the last wing or the last stronghold of it was called Carthage, where you get Hannibal or Carthage, yeah? And that was in Tunisia. And then they started having wars with Rome, yeah, for whatever reason. Probably to take over Rome, because Hannibal means that he worships Baal. These are Phoenicians who are worshipping Phoenician gods, even though it's in Africa. So they were beefing with Rome, yeah? Hannibal and all of them. That was the last stronghold of the Phoenicians. And remember, Carthage was peopled by, a lot of them Carthaginians came from Troy. When Troy fell, Queen Dido in them in 750, Queen Dido left Troy. Queen Dido of Troy, she went to fucking Carthage, Tunisia, and stayed there. And her people mixed into the Carthaginians there. So when you're talking about Hannibal, or I should say Hamilcar, his father, Hamilcar Barca, and Hannibal Barca, from this infamous Barca family of Numidians, they're really Phoenicians or Trojans, or people from Troy and stuff. These are Phoenicians, you see what I'm saying? Same Etruscans, they go by the name Etruscans or Tuscany. And between them and the Carthaginians, they was fighting down Rome or infiltrating Rome. Hannibal was fighting them. The Etruscans was infiltrating them. Yeah. And so, like I said, they go under all these names, and their whole thing is to replace the real nobilities, the real black nobilities in all these lands. They're the ones responsible for replacing the Colchians. The Colchians was the original Russians, who was a part of Pharaoh Sesostris' army. Pharaoh Sesostris left the contingent of his army at the southern part of Russia, where we call the, the Transcaucasus, yeah, in Chechnya and stuff like places like that. Believe it or not, yeah, that was Astarte as well. You will hear about her mentioned in the Bible as well, not to follow after these Phoenician gods. I think she's representative of Ishtar, yeah, who's granddaughter of Enlil, right? But anyway, like I said to you, hold on, where was I? Yeah, there was about replacing all these things. So when you get into later on in history, the Russian Revolution with the Russian Tsars and the Bolshevik Revolution, all that was to replace these Colchians, who were the real black Russians. You can see pictures of them. Putin and them know about this shit. Yeah, Putin. I could sit down with Putin and he would know what I'm talking about. You understand what I'm saying? But they was a contingent of Pharaoh Sesostris' army, according to the words of Herodotus, who's the most reliable historian when we come into these times what we're talking about. He went around the whole world and wrote about everyone and recorded what he seen. And if he seen niggers, he told you they were niggers. And if they were purple, he told you they were purple. So we need to study his books, the histories, yeah, to see what was going on in these times. You understand what I'm saying? So they were infiltrating all of these bloodlines. When I say infiltrate, I mean that they remember, they look like us. They've been mixing into us since Cain. So they will mix into us and get themselves into the high positions, and they have an agenda, a pact with the devil, with Satan, with the Alpha Draconians. Do you understand? So they did this in Greece with the Pelasgians, the Caspians, the original Greeks, who was writing finite script. Yeah, they were already using cuneiform script, finite script. You understand? That came from the Sahara Desert, Tamana culture, going back to 10,500 BC. They replaced the Pelasgians and Caspians with Dorians. Yeah, in history you can see the Dorians coming in and taking over in the 1500s BC. And this is the same time they're doing the same thing in fucking Egypt as the Hyksos. These are not white people. These are the same people you're seeing on the screen now. Phoenicians, Etruscans, who took over and kept fighting to take over Kemet and everywhere else. And we kept keeping them off. They would come and go, come and go. Khufu and them were Phoenicians. And then after Khufu and them, we had to take these Phoenician niggas off the throne. So we went into an intermediate period. And when we came out of this intermediate period, it was the 11th and 12th dynasties. It fell in the 6th dynasty. Pharaoh Pepi and them. After that, we went into a fucking feudalism, fucked up. The country fucked up. And for generations, it was fucked. And when we came out of it, it was all up in the 11th, 12th dynasty as black people again, talking about the real seed from Kush. So you're talking about Pharaoh Mentuhotep and Pharaoh Amenemhet and them from the 11th dynasty. Pharaoh Sesostris, who left a contingent of his army, like I told you, in fucking southern parts of Russia or the Transcaucasus. Yeah? And then they took over again as the Hyksos after the 12th dynasty. Yeah? After Queen Sobek Neferu, the first female ruler in 1786 BC. Yeah? After she was 13th dynasty. That shit fell again. And these Phoenician niggas is took over again. And yes, they are bringing Muzungu with them. So they, like that coin showed you, these niggas is rolling with Muzungu. That's their army. So they came and kept fighting to take us over. And they took us over for 400 years. Them and their mix-up of Asiatics and white folk and everything. Yo, they ruled over us. You understand? And we had to kick their ass out as Pharaoh Amosis. That's the real story of Moses. We had to kick their ass out under Pharaoh Amosis the First, 1580 BC. We chased them niggas out back into Palestine. So they kept infiltrating and taking over and manipulating and controlling and wiping out dynasties. Yeah, and bringing in their Muzungu fucking hordes. Fighting us down, man. They did it in Greece. They did it in Egypt. They did it in Sumeria. They did it in Rome. They're doing it now. They did it in the Moors with the Moors. Yeah, so Hannibal and his father Hamilcar, they were worshippers of Baal. And they, when they had their Punic Wars with with Rome, yeah, they lost the territory of Italy and the territory of Sicily to the Romans. But that means the Romans they were fighting, because remember the Romans they were fighting were already black, yeah, and they were black. So all these places, Sicily and shit, Italy was full of black people, Etruscans and Eto-Cretans and Pelasgians and Garamantes and different types of black people, man, good and bad. Yeah, and we was having a war, good and evil. Yeah. So then it shifted to Spain. When it shifted to Spain in the time of Andalusia, you had Moors crossing over from Africa too. So you had this whole clash of good and evil in this culture, fighting to dominate in this culture. And this is from 711 to 1492. And then in 1492, these niggas got kicked out of Spain. Do you understand? When they got kicked out of Spain, they didn't just disintegrate into thin air. Where did they go? They went up into Europe, further up into Europe, starting with Britain. They landed on the Isle of Man. They infiltrated Britain and infiltrated the royal black families of Britain and changed it into their into their dirty Moor families, resulting in King George III of Hanover, Germany. They wiped out Germany from 1616 to 1649, which is the 30 Years' War. They try and con you in history and tell you it's a war of Protestants against Catholics, Martin Luther. That's bullshit. It's a war to wipe out all the real Moors and replace them with these dirty Moors with the evil agenda. And they got it done by 1649. They setting up the world for a reset. Do you understand what I'm saying? England, France, Germany, Sweden, they had a place called Prussia just to the northeast of Germany, which was a black zone. Yeah, right near Hanover. Saxony was Hanover. Saxony was in Germany. So these Saxons in Germany, Hanover, these were black people like King George III. This is all hidden in history. History is a fucking bunch of lies agreed upon by Mzungu sitting in a room. So history can't defeat what I'm saying. History is bullshit because history can't give you no receipts. I've been giving you receipts since I started this. Yeah? Okay? So while we moved further up into Europe and from Andalusia, we moved into America. Yeah, 200,000 of them went to the Americas and became the nobility of America as Sephardic Jews. Before the Ashkenazim, before they sent for their Ashkenazim cousins who was coming from Europe and different parts of Europe, Ireland, Germany, France, wherever the fuck else. Yo, come over, yo, there's a new land here. There's some real friendly people here, Olmecs, Mayans, well, not Aztecs, Olmecs, Mayans, Toltecs, yeah? We just gonna take over this shit here and make a new empire. Fuck Spain. They kicked us out. We gonna fuck everything up. So they went to America and they went to Europe and they infiltrated into the New World Order of today. Yeah, because the real black nobility, which wasn't evil, got replaced in Europe, in all of the countries, even Rome, which the popes were black. All the way up to the 16th century. See how they tell us, oh, the first few popes in Rome were black people. Fuck off, all of them were black. How about that? All the way up to the 16th century. I got receipts. I'm going to do a slide just for that. Just to show you guys, because I've already gave the receipts without pictures. And now I'm going to use this software to do it again with pictures. And I'm going to show you how they fucking, whited out the thing. Not white people. These dirty Moors, these black devils that we're exposing here, Phoenicians, Canaanites, Sephardic Jews, yeah, dirty Moors. That's the nickname that I give them, because Rod Hayes passed that nickname down to me, the dirty Moors, yeah. Shout out to Rod Hayes. So they took over all these places, the nobilities in all these places, Switzerland banking, London banking, USA. They went and made, consisting of the banking of London and the spiritual weapon of Rome, the Etruscans, now they added on the military wing in this new frontier, which is America. So now they got a triad, a trinity. They got the spiritual center in Rome, they got the financial center in London, and now they've developed this military center in fucking Washington, D.C. You understand? And these niggas are the dirty Moors, the conquistadors, the black niggas. These are niggas. Do you understand? and it ended up with two Georges. You get George, who we just spoke about, coming from Germany, Hanover, George III, King George III, and he was the colonizer who was working with George Washington to colonize all the native people in America. Two Georges, King George III and George Washington, and his general, that, who is he, Lee Peterson, I keep forgetting this guy's name, was a fucking Moor with him. They keep depicting him as a white man with that fucking bobcat haircut. He's not, and neither is Christopher Columbus. Yeah, so you got two agendas, man, good and evil. It developed into a holy war that in history they try and paint it to you as a race, as a religious war. Oh, it was Catholics against Protestants. Who cares about Catholic? Basically the same thing. So you understand? They use that to come off. Anytime you hear Catholics versus Protestants, it started as dirty Moors versus Moors. It's a Moorish thing they're fighting. And these dirty Moors, they fight you with their hordes. They train these barbarians. They taught them the shit they're not supposed to know. We was only supposed to civilize them and clean them up from this black plague and all the shit that they spread in, eating raw meat and walking on all fours. We only supposed to give them 3 degrees. If you go back to Dr. Malachi York, we gave them 3 degrees. We just showed them how to civilize themselves. It wasn't the first time we had to do that. We had to do that before in the Caucasus Mountains with the story of Tirhu and Ibrahim, or Abraham and his father Tirak. They had to go and civilize these fucking lepers. You understand? That's why they give Abraham all the fucking praise, because he civilized them. Yeah? But by the time we get into modern history, a bit more modern with the Moors now, they don't want to talk about the Moors right now because we're in a different world. They created white racism supremacy, white supremacy racism, which replaced racism. So this is racism on steroids, and it hides them. It hides these people who we're talking about now, who are still in control of the world now. It hides them from society. You know? That's serious, that is. That's some serious shit. So these, now going under the word, the name Sephardim, they're now not going under any name because they want to be unseen in society. So most people don't know that the black nobility still run this bitch. But if we was to call them by any of these titles, the most recent one they were using was Black Jews, which means Sephardim. So we can't just always keep talking about the Ashkenazim like they're not in control of nothing. They are a front. That's why the main group of them fucking Muzungu, they're barbarians, is called Rothschilds, the Red Shield. So this red house of the Moors, yeah, that has got these fucking these dirty Moors, because you got the blue house and the red house. And out of the red house, you have a section of the red house who we're talking about here, who's on this Satanism, this conjuring, this Luciferianism thing. You understand? This Enlil business, yeah? And so their main family who protect them is called the Red Shields, or the Rothschilds. The Red Shields. Who's the red that they're shielding? It's the red house of the fucking Moors. Do you understand what I'm saying? These Sephardic Jews. They shield them. So they are not the leaders of the world. They are the shield for the leaders of the world. We're in a scapegoat culture. Baphomet. The scapegoat is these 13 bloodline, the Cabal, the Jews. That's not the real Cabal. The real Cabal is behind the Cabal, if you get what I'm saying. We've been trying to tell you this for a while, but some of you need the white man to be in control. Y'all niggas worship the white man. You think he's the most powerful thing that ever came to earth. You believe him when he gives you all these fucking lies. But when Revelation chapter 2 verse 9 and chapter 3 verse 9 and John 8:44 is telling you about these liars who are the synagogue of Satan, it's not just talking about Ashkenazim. It's talking about these guys who I'm having a discussion with you about now. It's talking about these Sephardic Jews too. Because although they are Jews, they're not. They're Satan's children because they got a pact with Satan. So they're liars because their father Satan was a fucking liar. Do you understand? And Enlil is a fucking liar. You understand? So these niggas are liars. And that's why they hide. And they're the force behind the ADL. Yeah? And that's why they can't have you talk about black Jews. You just can't talk about how black people are the real Jews or the real Israelites. The moment you start going down that line there, you're getting cancelled. because you're going to end up here where Jadefre's taking you. And because they know I'm already here, I can't get no traction online because they know I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to lead you to this. Most of you want to hear this sensationalism. You want to hear this flattery. You want to hear what makes you comfortable. Some of you are slaves to comfort and convenience to such a degree you can't even study what's going on in front of you. It's not convenient for you. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people that's not paying attention no more. Their head's gone. They're lost in the chaos. They haven't been paying attention from the start. I think I'm going to do this in 2 pieces because then it's just better.